to take that into mind. And what we want to address today is that when you or a loved one has lost a job, there's tough emotional terrain ahead. And here's how to navigate it. You want to realize that this affects the entire family. Every member in your family is involved. No matter how you'd like to protect your family and keep them out of it, they're involved, and in reality they must be, and they have to play their own part. Stages of grief over a job loss are based on the Kubler-Ross model, which we'll talk about a little later. The first stage that we get into is denial. The first thing people want to say is, this can't be happening to me. They want to act like it didn't occur. That's when you're still buying non-essentials and going to Noodles and Company twice a week and everything's fine because that automatic deposit is just going to keep coming along, and it takes a while for it to sink in that you have lost the job. You're not going to have that money coming in. It's amazing how many people see the layoffs going on around them and still are utterly shocked when it happens to them. They just want to deny it. That's, well, human nature. The next stage, the second stage of grief, is anger. You look around and you say, how could this possibly happen to me? It's where you mentally start listing all of the wonderful things you've done for that company, and how can those weenies do this to me? You know, you want to rail against them because they don't appreciate what you've done. You obsess about the slacker in the next cube who didn't get the axe. You rail against that idiot boss who kept the guy that was good at playing politics but couldn't do the job. You know, this is just normal to spend some time in this phase. To that next stage, which is bargaining, and here is where people want to look at it and say, well, maybe if, or, you know, it's one of those things not everybody is going to go through, but a lot of people will go through experience. You know, people will look at this and they'll say, well, just let me hang on till my kids graduate from school, or, you know, just a few more years and I'll be able to retire, whatever. You've got to address that and move on. And the fourth stage of grief is depression. That old brick wall that really hits people. That's the place where most people spend the longest time. You know, you've got this I'll never get a job situation that you're having to deal with. This is normal feeling in job search, but in this particular economic downturn, even the very best people are going to have a great deal of trouble finding a job. I'm sure that each and every one of you has realized that. You were not let go for lack of performance. You were let go because the economy has turned down and you were just a victim of a circumstance. The final stage is acceptance. Well, that sucked. You know, what's next? But the fact is, you will find a job. It may be a while, but it's highly unlikely that you will never be employed again. It's just one of those things you have to deal with and get through. We'll all get through this, you know? In the meantime, you'll experience the joy. You have the opportunity to experience the joy that comes with being able to grocery shop in the middle of the day, or spend more time with your children. You know, I know when I was working, I didn't get enough time with the kids. I wished I had more. But look at the bright side of it. You have time to do some things that you wouldn't get before. And that doesn't suck one bit. You know, it's going to be okay is the attitude to take. I can't fight it. I might as well prepare for it. Now, remember, let's move to the left. Family members will suffer the same 5 stages of emotions. The family members will be aware the situation has changed, even if the unemployed worker doesn't want to address or discuss the subject. The sooner the family is involved, the sooner they will have the opportunity to go through the 5 stages. If you have teenagers, they don't like disruptions. They particularly will be aware that something has changed. And you can't hide this from children. Children know what's going on with the parents. So you need to address this in the family. Some spouses don't want to hear about what's going on. It's your job to get out and earn that income. Don't tell me about it. I don't want to be involved. They have to be involved. Without this Kubler-Ross model for grief, the steps don't necessarily come in order. All people don't experience all stages. People may experience several stages in a roller coaster fashion where they switch back and forth from one stage to the other. And finally, returning to a stage several times can occur. People experiencing the stages should not force the stage to try to get through it. The grief process is highly personal and should be neither rushed nor lengthened. One should merely be aware of the stages that have to be worked through and that ultimately you will reach acceptance. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a psychiatrist born in 1926 in Switzerland. She moved to the U.S. in 1958 and worked and continued studies in New York. In 1969, she published a book on death and dying that describes the 5 stages or processes that people go through in dealing with grief and tragedy, especially when diagnosed with a terminal illness or catastrophic loss. Later, this was expanded to cover all forms of catastrophic personal loss, job, income, freedom, and other significant events. So it has been proven over time that these are the apparent stages that people go through in accommodating to losses that have a significant impact on their life.